All right, guys. Thanks for joining us here today. It's our first Lunch and Learn of the week. There's going to be a whole series taking place each day with pizza and food as always. So today we're joined here by Mark Latham. He is a financial economist and founder of votermedia.org. So after a career in academia at Wall Street, he took semi-early retirement to work on reforming corporations. And let him talk a lot about the project he's doing here today, which is super exciting. Hope you guys get something out of it, and you can definitely connect with him afterwards about the things he's talking about. And I hope to see you guys here throughout the week. Thanks for joining us. Let's give a round of applause for Mark.
Great. Thanks a lot, Mirko, and thank you, CodeCore, for inviting me to talk to you. A little more on the introduction. It's Mark Latham. Not Latham. More important, I guess, my email address is mark@votermedia.org if you want to follow up later. Thanks for coming out to listen. And I'll be talking about a plan to create an information co-op. It's a new idea, and we're still in the formative stages of it, so I'll be really interested to hear what you think of it, and any ideas would be great. So, is anyone here a member of a co-op? See a couple of hands up there. Which one?
Van City.
Yeah, Van City Credit Union. So, you may or may not know, credit unions are co-ops. If you have an account at Van City or a Post Capital Credit Union, any credit union, you're a member of a co-op. Any other co-ops represented here? Thank you. Yeah, that's another big one. Mountain Equipment Co-op, MEC, MEC. Big outdoor store on Broadway near Canby. If you've ever bought anything yet there, you're a member of that co-op. Any others? Yeah. Condo co-op, yeah, like a housing co-op, yeah. I'm not as familiar. It's a co-op, yes. I haven't studied them so much. I don't know how different they may be. So, what I'm going to talk about today falls more in the category of like Mountain Equipment Co-op or Van City than a housing co-op, I would say. Okay. So, let's see. Either of you who's a member of a co-op, does it matter to you that it is a co-op?
Yes.
Yes. How come?
Because it's not fat cats, men bracelets.
Okay. Sure. Good point. Yeah.
I don't know enough about what it means to be a co-op.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good point. Especially MEC, when the co-ops get really huge, often they don't end up feeling so much different from just another big retail store or another big bank, perhaps. I've spent some years studying how they work, and generally the bigger they are, the less kind of democratic they seem to be. So I'll leave that as an open question. Does it matter? And will it matter for us? I think it matters a lot. But yeah, let's leave that question for now and get into the talk. I'm going to talk today kind of in three parts. I'll talk about why we want to create an information co-op, what the business model of the co-op is that we're thinking about. And there's a Rails design problem. Since most of you here are Rails students, you probably know more about Rails than I do by now. There's a design problem for building our co-op website that I haven't yet figured out how to solve. So I'm going to throw that at you, and you can give me an answer today or later or whatever you come up with. So first, why create an information co-op? For me, what brought this on is a long-term project I've been working on really since I semi-retired about 18 years ago, which is a political reform project for reforming corporations, run by big fat cats, by the way, reforming corporations and reforming democracies. So like reducing corruption in corporations, reducing corruption in our democracies. And the focus I have had for all this time has been on voter information systems. Both in corporations, even if they're not co-ops, if you buy shares in a corporation, you have a vote in electing the board. You could fire those fat cats in big suits. And in our democracies, right, we have votes. One weak link in their structure is voter information. When people go to vote, either voting shares in a corporation or voting in a democracy, when we vote, do we have a clue? How much of a clue do we have? How well informed are we? I think we can do better. One way to do better is with a better voter information system So the voter media project, which I and a number of others have worked on for some years, is all about a way to build a better voter information system in corporations and in democracies. So I'm not going to go into it in detail here because we're mainly about the information co-op in particular. But if you want to know more about that reform project, that's the website votermedia.org. Okay, there's it's been there for several years. It's a Rails website, and a lot of the chunks of code we're probably going to take from this website into the new one. But you can look there. Oh, we ran an experiment. We built our voter information system. The best one we've done so far, I think, is in the UBC student union. We ran an experiment there for several years. And there's some videos here on interviewing UBC students about how that worked and what was the impact on democracy there. So let me see. That's about it for that one. So it's a nonprofit open source project, this one, and the proposed information co-op also. So I'm going to move on, I think, from here to the business model for the information co-op in particular. But before I do, any questions about this bigger project that we're a part of? Okay. Yeah, so let's leave that for now and get into, I think, the heart of the talk, which is really the business model. So, let's see. The main model is, it's a model for a market for information, buying and selling information. There's a whole lot of information on the web already. There are information markets already. There is sort of the free information category and the paywall information category. Information is kind of a broad concept. It can include journalism, can include software. But for the first round of this information co-op, what I think may work best would be, rather than say software that can be used anywhere in the world, what I'm thinking is local information in the Vancouver area, but information that people would pay a little bit for. So the current draft plan for the business model here is members of this information co-op would be targeting residents of the Vancouver area. Eventually, grow to other places like Craigslist, start in one place and go somewhere else. But say if we focus on information for people in the Vancouver area, and the business model, the money part is information that people would pay $1 a month for. So it's a low price, but it's not zero. And it's an ongoing thing. It's not like a one-shot thing. Like you become a member, you pay $1 a month, and you get login access to some information. And it better be worth more than $1 a month, because otherwise you're not going to grow. Okay. So that's the purchasing side of information. Now the supply side of information, this co-op will not itself provide the information. The co-op is kind of a marketplace. We will basically outsource all the information provided into an open competition, and people will be competing for slices of that dollar. So say near the beginning of the co-op, if we can get, say, 1,000 people, each paying $1 a month, minus a few costs, let's say we have $900 a month, and we're going to pay that $900 a month to information suppliers. Now, the way we've set it up for voter information at UBC, what we found works pretty well is, we don't tell the information providers what information to provide. They can provide anything they want. In the context of politics and journalism and voter media that we've done up to now, that's called free press. Press can write anything they want. Free press, free speech. And the people like it or they don't. They believe it or they don't. And in our case, the members pay for it or they don't. What's going to happen is, the plan is, each member puts in $1 a month. Say we have $1,000, $900 in there. And then some information providers come along and they each build their own website. But to get access to that website, you're going to have to be a co-op member. And that's going to be the design problem I'll throw at you in part 3. But suppose we solve that design problem and you log into the co-op website, and that gives you access to the website of maybe 10 other websites, each of whom, on their website, they're providing some information to the co-op members. And they're hoping that the co-op members will pay them for it. The way we pay is we vote. Co-op members will vote to say, I think we should give 10% of our pool to this one and 20% of our pool to that one. Okay? And each co-op member can vote at any time and change their vote at any time. And this runs in continuous time, overnight, once a day. We have an algorithm that basically combines together everyone's vote of shares and then outputs say, okay, out of today's slice of money, which if you have 900 a month, that's 30 bucks. Out of today's 30 bucks, what slice goes to each information provider?
What type of information are we talking about?
Okay, we're talking about basically any information that the providers think we'll vote for. But good question. What I think, the kind of information I think will work in this marketplace, in this state, would be saying how to save money on your cell phone plan. You know, there's a bunch of cell phone plans out there. They're always changing. They're changing the rules, changing the plan. And you all have cell phones, probably, but you don't have hours to spend researching the plans all the time. You know they're always changing. There may be a better plan out there. You don't know what it is. If somebody would spend a few hours every month and stay up to date and keep a website up to date with, here are the plans that are available in the Vancouver area, I guess British Columbia, and here are the better ones. And here's a new one. They just changed the rule on this one. Better get out of that because they're now charging you $5 more per month. You didn't notice. I think that kind of information may be worth $1 a month. So, yeah.
What problem is this aiming to address?
The broad problem is corruption in our democracies and corporations, because I think this problem will help provide better voter information. But in the immediate case of this particular business model, I would say, helping people save money on, the fat cats at banks are taking advantage of us. You don't notice it. It's in the fine print. They change it now and then. You agreed to it. And now they're taking an extra few bucks off you per month and you didn't notice. It happens all the time.
So you're trying to create a perfect information system like an economic model, assuming that all actors have perfect information?
I'm assuming people don't have perfect information.
Well, not now.
And they'll pay. I'm trying to
improve.
improve people's information.
Yeah.
And what motivated me was voters, because I think that's where it really hurts us, because we vote for stuff we don't understand.
So can you buy more than $1? Like, can I buy 2 shares?
Good question. Why would you want to do that?
Because I want what I want, not what everybody else wants.
Okay. But, so the answer to that is, well, there's 2 answers to that. First, the dollar you put in, it goes into a pool. We, the members of the co-op, that's going to pay for information that we can all access together. If you want to buy something just for you, we already have markets for that. There's lots of places will sell you access. You want to take your money. That's a good model, and it's out there. But this is sort of a new model that's a little different from what you're used to. And you don't get, once you put your dollar in the pool, you don't control that dollar by yourself. You can vote about it, but your fellow co-op members may outvote you, and that dollar may go for something you don't even like. In the end, you may drop out of the co-op altogether if you don't like it. And likewise, the information suppliers, if they're providing information and they're working, and the members don't vote them any money for it, they'll probably say, give up, well, they don't like me, I'm quitting. And they'll drop out. So it's kind of a free-form, self-forming group. And so basically, the answer is no, $1, one member. However, $1 is not a whole lot. Maybe there will be some people who want better information. We might end up having 2 pools later. $1 pool and a $5 pool. Say.
That $1 gives you access to the 10 providers.
Yes.
There's as much access as you choose to exercise.
Good question. Basically, the short answer is yes. You go there, it's a website, it's got information. You can go there every day if you want. You can go there once a month if you want. Maybe you don't like it, you don't even go there, but you like some of the others, and so it's still worth staying in because you go to these 3. And so you'll vote money to these 3, but you won't vote money to that one that you don't like, right?
So we want to make this a voting platform open source so
Yes.
that people can adopt it, make changes to the voting system, community can contribute to the better development of the system?
Basically, yes. Although, yeah, the votermedia.org website as it is open source now. And yes, the proposal is to make the website code for the co-op open source as well. I think the first application of that is if somebody else wants to make another co-op in another city, they could just copy the source code, change a few things, and away they go, and change the whole platform if they want. Now, if they want to change the platform that we're using in our co-op, we would have to agree to it, right? And there will have to be a political structure of the co-op itself, in which members will elect a board of directors, I guess, and the board of directors would say, you know, some coder comes along and says, hey, I've forked off from your source code, I built something better, why don't you implement it? So the board will have to decide whether to implement it. Make sense? Let me just show you what the ballot looks like, because, you know, the existing voter media website has mock-ups that this would be based on. So here, I've made a mock-up of information providers for Vancouver voters, blogs in Vancouver, Canada. So, here's some people who blog about maybe politics in Vancouver. And this is set up, you can vote. Suppose you don't like Francis, you know, right now, this is showing, at this point, with all the votes we've had so far, as of last night, we're giving Francis Mueller 23% of this pool. Right now his pool is 0, but it's a concept, okay? And say you look at that and you say, I love Francis Mueller, she's worth more than 23%. Then you can cast your vote. And in this case, you know, we're trying to make it simple. We got a drop-down menu, and you can go there and vote 40% for Francis Mueller. Right? And say you really don't like City Hall Watch, you're going to vote 0. So you can go down and vote shares to any or all of these, vote anytime you want, and every night we will use the last time you voted, we will use your last vote on each of these, and in the calculation. So you don't have to vote every day for your vote to be counted. Yeah.
So that 40% is the money that you pay per month?
Yes, like your $1 goes into a pool. Maybe it'll be $900, and so that's $30 a day. Every day we'll do a calculation. So if this was happening, we had $30 a day, and Francis Mueller would be getting 23% of that $30. And then tonight, calculations run again on the next $30.
So on the left, it's just sort of the average, but then the average.
Good question.
is sort of
It's not exactly the average. Basically, we have an algorithm. The simplest thing conceptually would be to take an average. I love to be simple, but as an economist, I've gone through it and I found that taking the average does not give an incentive to the media to please everybody, actually.
But it's the average for last month, right?
The votes are counted. It's for each voter. It's the last time you vote that counts. So if you voted today and yesterday, then only your today vote counts. Whenever you vote again, it kind of erases what you did before. Okay? And then if you haven't voted for a week or 2 or 3, we'll go back and find your latest vote. But if you haven't voted for more than 2 months, we're not going to count it anymore. We'll say that's irrelevant. So actually, the vote decays. In the last 10 days, we'll count your vote for full. More than 10 days old, if your vote is more than 10 days old, we're going to take 2% of it away per day until 50 days, it all goes to 0, so 10 plus 50. 60 days trailing, you haven't voted, your vote no longer counts. We feel it's no longer relevant. Those numbers could be tweaked, but that's the way we've been doing it now. It sort of matches with the way democracies run now. You know, when you're voting in an election, some elections may run for a couple of weeks, you vote in advance, but there's a 2 or 3 week period, that all counts. But if the last time you voted wasn't like 3 years ago, that vote doesn't count anymore. You have to vote fresh.
If everybody's vote degrades over time,
Yes.
doesn't that mean that all the contributors actually get 0, and then all of the donations will still stay going?
No, your vote doesn't become 0. The weight on your vote becomes 0.
Okay.
Yeah, good question.
How do you become information
Okay. The goal is to let anyone be an information provider. Now, we could have spammers, I suppose, spam websites. And so you can put, if that's a problem, there's several ways to deal with it. You could put a little fee on it, say you have to pay $1 a month to be a provider. This, as voting happens, when new ones come on, they come on at the bottom because these are sorted in decreasing amounts of shares. So near the top of the ones, at the top of the ones that our voters like. So if you're brand new, you want to look at something useful, you look at the top. New ones would come in at the bottom. In order to make their way up and have more people notice them, they're going to have to get some votes. And so, if a spammer comes in at the bottom, no one's going to like it. We could have, you could have spam flags and throw them off. You could charge them a buck to come in. There are ways to handle that. But the main answer is, anyone who wants to be an information provider is welcome to come on in, but they're going to start at 0, and they're going to have to build a following to get enough votes to actually come above 0.
So if we reasonable to assume that the users need to be informed in order to vote?
Well, they would have to have their own opinion. In order to vote, say you're a new user, and as soon as you join the co-op, you have a vote. There's not much point in voting until you've looked at these websites. I mean, presumably you joined the co-op to get some information. So there will be links here. Right now these are blogs, so it's a link to the blog and a link to posts. But what we would put for a general website providing information, say about cell phones or banks or something like that, the plan for the new website is this space here. The information providers themselves can format this space to link to their own website, and this is like their storefront to the co-op. They say, here I got some cell phone plan information, here's the link to that. For banking, here's a link to that. So, to become informed, you first of all, you go and you get the information that you just paid $1 for. And you go in here and here and here and see what is useful to you. Then you'll have an opinion to motivate your voting. You go to this one, you find it's useless to you, you vote 0. You go to this one, you find it really useful, you vote them some money.
But don't you say all people don't have time to look through all this information, but then now in order to vote they have to.
That's true. So it does require some information, but because these people are getting paid, they're going to organize their information to be as useful and as quick for you as possible. Rather than going out, I mean, there's a lot of information about cell phone plans out there on the web, but you'd have to do a lot of looking and searching and research to make sense of it. Whereas here, somebody's going to be getting paid for organizing it in a very succinct way. So when you go in here, it better be quick and useful for you. And that's what everyone's going to try to do, so that you won't have to work hard.
So all the parts is on the provider side to kind of make the installment to keep it easier to understand.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the first part. I guess, they will have a motivation to make their interface useful, because if it's not useful, that's the first impression we get of them. I might not even go there if it doesn't look useful. See? So they'll have it's a funny thing about this design is that it's very free form and laissez-faire and competitive and open. Anyone can come, offer anything, present it in any way. And I'm hoping that the motivation to get votes will be enough to encourage them to do a really good job. And in our experiment at UBC, it seemed to work pretty well. But we're going to have to be adaptable and maybe revise the system. Yeah.
Are there free and paid options on this? And so far, for the number of users that you've had, what sort of percentage have actually signed up and it's okay?
This is not the information co-op yet. This is a previous thing. This was not for pay. Okay. At UBC, when we did the experiment at UBC, again, it wasn't for pay. Well, the individuals going to vote were not paying. That was for a voter information system. You kind of need the voter community to be paying. Like for the student union, get money from the student union, and that's what we did. So we ran this with student union money for a while. I sponsored it at first. Did some of your questions still left over? Did I answer it?
I guess I'm just kind of wondering if, as a user, if I wanted to check this site out,
Right.
would there be
a free sample period. Yeah, good
I
question.
should actually pay.
Okay. We're still figuring that design out. Certainly, being a laissez-faire system, the information providers can make anything free they want to, and put up a login barrier for anything they want. If they make everything on their site free, then we won't have to pay, we won't have to vote the money to get at it, right? So they have an incentive to do exactly what you have in mind there. So I'm kind of a laissez-faire kind of guy, and I like having a competitive system here. And I don't want to give, I've seen people with concentrated power abuse their power, and I think even in a co-op, I've seen it happen. And so I don't want to give the co-op power to say, this information is no good, we're kicking you out. Only the members have the power to do that. And one of the reasons is, when the co-op has director elections, I would expect the information providers to the co-op to be advising the members of the co-op on that voting process too.
I was wondering if we could talk a little bit more about the experiment with BBC.
Let's see, I'd like to save that.
Because
I mean, it is, okay, go ahead.
because you say it was kind of a success, and I was wondering what the
Because I said it was
kind of a success, like
success.
yeah,
Right? Yeah.
and I was just wondering like the outcome and what you think.
There's a ton of information on here about that. It's a very deep question, so I think I'm going to postpone it. But I'll just give you a hint of where to look for that. My favorite is some of these videos. We got several videos here. Actually, the first one is not necessarily my favorite. I kind of like this one, how voter media affects election campaigns. So if we go like to the, yeah, anyway, there's a video, the transcript is there. I suggest you take a look at that. Also, we have a publications page, votermedia.org/publications. There's an outline of this talk on there. It's in the first chronological order. The latest one is right there. There's a detailed discussion of how it went at UBC and what we did. It's called Experiments. See down here, June 2012 Experiments in Voter Media. That paper, 11-page paper, summarizes, analyzes what happened at UBC. So I would refer you to that for now. And feel free to follow up with me afterwards. But I'd like to move on at some point to the Rails question, Rails design question. And then we can come back to it. If we have time before 1, we can talk about that now. Okay? So, yeah. Even if some people vote money for, say you're an information provider, and we've got 1,000 members, and 20 of those members love you, and they all vote you money, but the rest don't like you, and don't vote, and all vote for you to get 0. Chances are you're going to get 0. So it's but if we were giving you an average of the voter amount, you'd be getting some money, right? So the voting system is based more on the idea of the median voter. And if, 90% of the voters are voting 0, then the median is 0. It's not exactly median. We've played with it, and there's a number of adjustments we've made to that. But just to give you a taste of the algorithm, the whole algorithm, it can be adjusted, but that's what we've found so far. What we have now in place, which I haven't explained to all of you, the details of it, but we found it works pretty well. But there are plenty of things that could be adjusted. It's a deep issue. We can spend an hour talking about the algorithm itself. But just to give you a taste of it, it's more based on the median than on the mean. So I guess I'll move on to the Rails question, unless you have more questions about the business model. We can come back to it later. Good. Okay. So the Rails question is building the shared login system, essentially. The idea is, on the co-op website, every member will have the usual kind of login that you'll always build on Interactive Rails website. The question is how to build the shared login system so that when a member signs up, joins the co-op, pays the $1 a month, and has a login on the co-op website, they should automatically get login access, or access somehow, to be able to go and read the 10 or 20 information provider websites. So when a provider wants to be a provider, they will make some arrangement with us. But what that arrangement will be depends on the design that we have. And there's a number of possible ways to do it, but you understand the problem, right? And so that it has to be some kind of a login barrier so that the average member of the public who hasn't joined the co-op cannot get access, right? So it's some kind of a login, but it has to be automatically shared. Okay, so thoughts on that?
Is it a requirement that they have to come to the voter media site first?
That's a great question. Did somebody tell you to ask that? I love that question. That's very interesting. Well, of course, you're going to have to come there first to log in and create your account. But maybe you did that a week ago. And now you have time to dig into the information and you want to dig into it. And your question is, can you go straight to the information provider, or do you have to go to them by logging in first and then maybe linking over?
Yeah,
right?
because people think that.
Exactly. So there's a plus minus. There's some attraction to building it that way, but there's some hassle to the users.
Yeah, people think
Plus minus. But good question. Any other thoughts on how to do this? Yeah, OAuth. So OAuth is, that may be the answer. Who said that? Okay. So tell me more. What way of using OAuth?
Well, it sounds like you need to implement an OAuth server.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and traffic will have to be routed to your website because it's essentially a payment gateway. So it's a few ways too much trouble to have some weird iframe like that. Not so much about your website. Have them sign up, do all the payments, and
Right.
give them access to whatever else.
Okay. So they have to come through our website once, set up the OAuth, and somehow we share the OAuth with the information providers. Is that right? So when
No, they have to
come through us every time?
They redirect and then redirects back. Right.
So that's not just once. That's every time they want to go to a.
No, once the cookie's set, they should be good to go.
Okay. I see. So you have to set the cookie once, right?
And then they're logged in that website and they have the access token for
Right.
X number of days or whatever.
Okay.
And then once that runs out, then they can just log in again. So
Okay. So they're still going to have to come back about every 10 days because what if they stop paying, right? You can't have their token work forever. It has to expire in about 10 days, let's say. So I was hoping that OAuth would give some, there'd be a way of using OAuth that would, like, can I tell the information provider, hey, this person stopped paying now? So that way that information provider can set the cookie and it lasts forever until I tell them, or the co-op site tells them that that person's not paying anymore.
I think you can set it so that they have to use a refresh token to get a new access token.
Right.
And with that, you might be able to bundle some additional information on that user. It'll ultimately be up to them to implement it properly, but
Right,
there
right.
is sort of a two-stage access to
Yeah.
the website.
And the more complicated we make it for the providers, the harder it is. It's going to be to recruit providers.
Yeah, but OAuth implementation, OAuth 2 is so
Yeah.
complicated that you should be using library anyway. If you're trying to implement it yourself,
I'm sorry, we should be using what?
you should be using library anyway.
Library. So library is an alternative to OAuth? Or library?
I'm saying like a gem or like
Oh, I
a
see,
gem,
okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
Just to round out the details.
Right. And so you're assuming that the information provider is a Rails website and will have that same library?
No, you're going to be
Oh,
building
I have.
like press plugins.
Okay. So what do they need on their side?
They need to install your WordPress plugins.
The WordPress. Okay. So I can see the co-op creating like a template website for information providers. Like, here's a WordPress with our handshake in it, or here's a Rails website with our handshake in it.
Yeah,
And
you
take
can
this.
provide your own gem. It's a Rails website.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So I built most of this voter media website, so I kind of know how to build a Rails website, but this is a step beyond what I know how to do. So any of you, if you have ideas about this, and if you want to get involved in this project, either on this complex issue or in building the information co-op website, let me know. We're a volunteer project at this point. It's the basic idea is not making money, it's sort of saving the world, empowering people with better information. But on the other hand, if you do want to make money, and we build this, you can be an information provider. That can be a way. So, yes.
What's the incentive as an information provider to say do it through the co-op and just say provide it on that?
Yeah, they could make their own. They could make their own paywall, right? Why would they want to provide through the co-op?
Yeah.
They can do both.
Well, they
You,
can
you,
vote.
yeah, I don't think there's any harm in that. There could be a website that's already charging for access to the website. They could charge through the co-op as well. They could say, you know, we'll be in the co-op information provider as well. Although, if it turns out that it's cheaper for someone to join the co-op than to pay them directly, then they'll be eating their own customers, right? I guess one way would be if the co-op has grown to 1,000 members and you're a new person trying to build your information business, this could be a quick way to get access to 1,000 people. So yeah, if you're already making money with your own paywall, this may not attract you. But the idea is there will be a pool of $900, someone will be attracted to it. You know? It's kind of an open competitive system. If there's nobody selling into it, then it'll be easy to make money off it. So there'll be some kind of competitive equilibrium there. Someone will come in. The question is, will it be good enough to justify people paying $1 a month? So hand back here.
Wouldn't the information provider just provide enough info through the co-op to get people interested and put up your own site for like as an upsell strategy?
I think that I'd say yes. And again, I have this laissez-faire philosophy, and which says that I think, we'll find out. I think that's fine. They can, you know, the co-op is pretty cheap, you know, and so the typical kind of freemium model is, right, you may offer something for free or offer something for very cheap and then have a more premium version. And offering something for cheap may be a way to pull people into paying for your premium version. That could be good for the co-op and good for them, you know. So I'd be very happy with that. So let's see. I guess looks like we covered everything. We got still plenty of time, so we can talk, you know, any topic you want. That Rails issue, the original voter media, the business model. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the success of the experiment?
Sure. Let's see. Another favorite one is, well, we can compare it with the student paper at UBC. Anyone know what the student paper is at UBC? The UBC, anyway, there's a student newspaper, like most student unions. UBC's big, 46,000 students. They have a student newspaper that has an annual budget of about $200,000 per year. So $200,000 of student money goes to this newspaper. And when we launched voter media at UBC, we launched it with $8,000. So we had an $8,000 budget, which was paying bloggers to cover the student union and elections. And with our $8,000, most observers agreed we were doing a better job than the UBC. For the $8,000, we didn't just give $8,000 to somebody, anybody. We had $8,000 and people had to compete for it, and they had to make the students happy, and students had to vote for them to get some money, which is very different from the UBC. One reason I'm pretty confident we did a better job in covering elections than the UBC is that the head editor of the UBC told me that, and I have him on video. So there's a video. So basically what happened is, when we launched the contest the first time, some people got very excited about it and started a brand new blog. There's one blog in particular, which over the years has been the best one. It's now called UBC Insiders. There's a ubcinsiders.ca website. The contest is no longer really running, but if you can look at that website and see some pretty amazing election coverage that they did while we were doing this. So I would point to that. And in our videos, there's one. Let's see. There's a video called Mainstream Media versus Voter Media. And on there, this is the chief editor of the UBC at the time. And here he's saying, he wrote for the UBC, this is when we started out, you could always see the insiders and other blogs get the information quicker and faster and with more analysis of what stuff that was happening. Because basically, those bloggers knew they had to perform, otherwise they weren't going to get paid. The UBC, they're getting $200,000 anyway. That money's not getting taken back. So this is, and basically one thing we did was we put competitive pressure on the UBC. And a number of observers, including this guy, said because of this pressure, they were embarrassed and they had to pull up their socks and do a better job. So, to me, that's a pretty good sign. Another favorite quote of mine, these videos, let's see. What media did we see at last? Here's a guy, Alex Logie, he was on the council. At the time, we figured, hey, it's a great idea. We'll give it a shot. It's not going to cost that much, especially since I gave them the money. It's not a big deal. If it fails, it fails. If it succeeds, it succeeds. And it far surpassed any of anyone's expectations, except for mine. So generally, the observers said that a bunch of new blogs popped up. Some of them were fantastic. Some of them were kind of poor. And the poor ones faded away.
How are they being compensated based on their content? In what way were you structuring the bloggers?
Basically, the way that ballot that I showed you, where each voter could vote shares of the pool to different information providers, and somehow, through an algorithm that we changed over time, I worked with the student committee and we tweaked it a number of times to try to make it, encourage competition. We're a little concerned about too much going to the top blogs and there being this feedback loop where you get popular, you get money, and then you do better, and then there's only like one or two blogs and that's it. We were worried about that, so we tried to find a way of spreading the money around and keeping the competition going. So the algorithm changed over time, and what we have now is the result. Yeah. I'm sorry? Oh, what's the best algorithm? Basically the one we have now. I mean, we've tried a whole bunch, but the one I showed you, having a drop-down menu with percentage amounts for the voter, that's really simple, right? And what's done in the background behind there, it's coded in Ruby. If you want to see the algorithm itself, you go into the source code. You can find the source code. It's linked from our About page. Bottom of every page, there's a link to the About page. And up there, it says here it's for an open source project. So if you click on open source, you actually go to, this one's not on GitHub, it's on Assembla, but there's our source code. So the algorithm in particular, I think one of the most interesting parts of the source code is the algorithm itself, and that is in our communities model. So here, community, the way the site is built, of course, is that it can handle multiple pools, right? Like for the information co-op, we're going to start off with one pool focused on Vancouver and consumer information. Say, we can, once you've written the code, you can have multiple pools, right? So, anyway, there's a model called the community, because you can have a different pool for every different community. And in here, it's not very professional coding. I'm sorry I did it, and I hadn't taken your course there. So some things are probably pretty sloppy. But there's this whole section here. Yeah, this. Tally. Okay? This method percentage votes, and decaying the votes if they're too old. All that stuff happens in there. It's a long-term vote. But I have a lot of comments in it. If you're interested, you can look through it. So I'm happy to chat more, either here as a group, or feel free to contact me later if you come up with questions, you got an idea. Email me, mark@votermedia.org, and we got a few more minutes if you have any more questions.
What is the gist of how you guys decided to calculate the votes?
Okay, there were several factors. One is my background as an economist, looking at this problem. Let's see. And some of it was just the experiment. We were watching what was happening, looking at the top logs, seeing how big of a share they were getting. In the end, I created this parameter called the spread parameter, which spreads the wealth around. It's a long story. But basically, some of it was tweaking. Some of it was just experimenting, watch what happens, and see, do we think this is competitive enough? How many blogs should be funded? Should it only be 2? I don't think that's enough. But if there's 20 blogs, that's probably information overload. So I think having how many of these sources should be making money, I think somewhere in the range of 5 or 10 is probably good. Enough for competition, but not too much to overload the voters. So there was some experimentation on that one.
So kind of like diminishing returns, like once your blog gets a certain amount of popularity, you get much less in proportion.
Basically like that. The way it is, we took an exponential curve function, but it's kind of like a marginal tax rate, a progressive tax system, where if you look at the share you're getting, if you're getting 23% now, or 40% now, or 50% now, however big that number is, we're going to haircut your votes by an exponential function of that number. I probably can't go into more detail for now. It was fun. I have a background in math and in economics and in Wall Street. So I was really interested in how do you make a market, how do you make it competitive, and how do you make it work for the information market, which has very special economics. So you can have this group buy. A way to think about the information co-op is a group buy. If you get a group together, then you can get a discount on whatever it is you're buying. And if what you're buying is information, the economics of information, once you've done the work to make it, whether you're selling it for 100 or 1,000, it doesn't really matter. So the economics of getting a group buy are especially powerful for information. I'm sorry. Perhaps, yeah. I thought of it that way. I'm not sure. I don't know. Yes.
Have you been trying to monitor the attributes of the top articles people are voting for? Do they have attributes that actually you are expecting? Because your website is it aims to have the websites with the most useful information. But then sometimes maybe always actually prefers information that are controversial or may not have the attributes that are related to having the best information.
Right. Yeah, so here you're thinking in terms of political information covering elections or consumer information, how to save money in your cell phone plan. It sounds like you're orienting more towards the politics, which is the experiment we've done, right? So, yeah, this is a great question having to do with political journalism. As you know, there's a lot of controversy about journalism these days, the economics of it. They've been having a lot of difficulty closing down newspapers. And one question is, if you write some journalism that gets paid in the existing market system, you kind of have to stimulate people. You have to excite them. You have to give them something controversial, which may be quite different from what's actually helpful for society and better informing your voters. Okay, that's a great question. And that actually ties very much to the algorithm question. Basically, if we use an algorithm based on taking an average, from an economic analysis point of view, taking an average will tend more towards the stimulation model, and taking a median tends more towards the public interest, useful for voting model. Now, why that is a long story. I have trouble explaining it in 2 sentences. I should be able to by now. But by using a median vote. Let's see. A lot has to do with why do we pay for information? If I just want to go on a website and be entertained, let me put it this way. If I'm using my own money only, I want to do something, supposing I'm a selfish person, okay? If I'm using my own money, I'll pay for something that entertains me. But for society's point of view, I wouldn't pay money for information that's boring to me, that helps everyone vote better, because that money would be helping a broad amount of society. It would be like me donating $1 or $100 to the whole city of Vancouver. However, I would vote for everyone to pay $1 or $100 and provide that boring information that will help everyone vote better. It's a public good. So basically, you can classify information into two kinds. One that stimulates the reader, and one that benefits the whole society by helping people vote better. Okay? And if you want that latter kind, which we don't have enough of, then you'd really better pay the media by a median voting system such as this one, which is why we built this. It's exactly why we built this. To give an incentive for the media to provide information that benefits everybody. And in order to get paid, they're going to have to get votes from a lot of people, not just one or two or three. That's as best as I can do. I should be able to do better than that by now. But that is the heart of the entire project in that one question. Feel free to follow up with me. Maybe I can do better if I think about it. So, is that a question? Yes.
So you're looking to put there a package to with the information providers so that they can participate in your marketplace?
Exactly. So this is really just, this information co-op just organizes a marketplace. The co-op itself doesn't provide information at all. It just provides this market that invites people to come in and pay $1 a month, and then invites information to providers to come in and compete for a piece of that pie. We're just an intermediary in that. So the co-op is essentially outsourcing all the important stuff it does. It's just a platform, a meeting place for those payments.
So your challenge is you need to provide a mechanism for the information providers to participate in the marketplace.
Right.
And for the participants, consumers, to get insight. Okay, maybe you're going to have to co-op and then get that way.
Yeah. People would have for the users, it's like join the information co-op, pay $1 a month to it, and then you get access to this.
So they're all captive.
They're captive in that sense. Well, you can drop out at any time. They're not captive.
Since you're a Van City member.
Van City members aren't captive either. You can close your account there and go somewhere else.
As you're in there.
Yeah. Then, once you join the pool, you've got your money in the pool, you can quit and not put any more money in. But once you've put your $1 in for that month, it's going to go.
So, say if you were in Van City,
Right.
you go to the Van City website, there's a link on that page to find out what's going on with your co-op. That links you into the marketplace.
That's not what we're proposing.
Well,
But that could be a future. That's one reason why I'm doing this, to inform people in co-ops and voting communities.
Consumers might not even realize that this is
Going there. So our information co-op could make an arrangement with Van City. That's an extra possible thing that I haven't really thought about, but it's an interesting idea. Yeah. No, it's an interesting idea to link up like that. But first, I think we kind of have to stand on our own. We have to get those 1,000 people and make sure they're getting their money's worth in information. And by the way, to get this thing rolling, I'm willing to kick in some money. I plan to donate some money to start this co-op, because there's sort of this feedback loop, right? Once you get to 1,000 people, if that money pays enough to create information to make it worth paying $1 a month for, then as we grow, like we grow from 1,000 to 2,000, we'll have twice as much money, but we still only need to provide $1 a month. We still only have to beat that $1 a month value hurdle. So once you get to a certain size and it grows bigger, it becomes a very good value proposition for anybody in Vancouver to just join this thing, because you're going to get more and more and more information as it grows. You think about the economics of that. That's why it could grow ultimately into a global software co-op. Basically, everyone in the world could belong to it and start providing software. How much software can you get for everybody in the world? They all started paying $1 a month each.
Going back to PVC, how did
I'm going to interrupt you, Tim, because we had another hand up over here. Sorry.
I was just wondering, like, is it $1 to access all the information, or is that $1 per like topic or area?
It's $1 a month for all the information. So basically, yeah, this co-op, we're voting slices of the money pool to maybe 10 different websites. And when you join the co-op, pay your $1 a month, you get login access to all those websites. So it's designed to be actually amazingly cheap. And so it's close to a free software, free information idea, but having just enough payment to make it worthwhile for somebody to do the work and provide that information.
I just have an idea. I don't think it even needs, I mean, you have like a pool of money. I don't even think that they need to compete for that money. I mean, you don't need to give those money to those like information providers, because when the user click on the link, they go to their website, right? They earn ad money either way. So it's like,
So you're saying advertising is enough?
so yeah, when they provide good information or controversial information, those users go to their website and then they earn ad money in return. So it's like they're already.
Well, that's the advertising model for supporting for supporting useful websites. That model is already out there, and it works to a certain extent. But I think so. This information co-op is designed to do better than that. So we would have to do better than that because that model is already out there. Oh, I just thought of one thing I wanted to mention to you on the Rails, the shared login design question. I had one idea as a kind of an amateur in this design question, but I was looking around at what JavaScript can do. And coming back to your question about you have to follow the link from our website, the co-op website, to the provider. One thing I thought of is, can't we, on the ballot, go back. Yeah, so back to the ballot. So here, we're going to have links to the information providers. What if, into every link to an information provider, when the user clicks on that link, we attach to the URL an encoded, encrypted string, like an authorization token. So we're not even using OAuth. We have our own login system. But because we're managing this page, on every link, we can have this bit of JavaScript that runs it, and on the link that is being followed, it attaches an authorization token saying basically this user is a paying co-op member, and on the receiving end, when they go to the information provider website, the information provider's website can decode that string and say, oh yeah, this person's good. We'll put a cookie on that's good for 10 days, but you still have to refresh every 10 days. That is a pain for the users. However, users should be returning to this at least every week anyway. This page, for a couple of reasons. One, this is where you can see the information here may change. There will be links, because we're not just one information provider, we are many. They'll all have their top links right here. So you'll be wanting to come back here to see what else we have besides this website. And, important for us, we'd also love you to vote. If you don't come back here, like if you go to this website and never come back here, they're not going to get paid. So they actually want you to come back here. Because this is the only place you say they're going to get money. So in a way that kind of works for us, where for some arrangements that might be an inconvenience. For us, it's actually almost a necessity. We really want our users to come just once a week. It's not asking too much. And it's good for the user. They can say, oh, something's just moved up And meanwhile, I will say what I think, which ones are good and which ones are not. So that's why I was thinking you might not even need OAuth, but just our own login system and a kind of handshake. They're still decoding that authorization token at the information provider's end. That's a hassle for them. So there I would see, building some template websites on WordPress and Rails and whatever else. So that's ready to go, and somebody who wants to start up and be an information provider and knows nothing about computers, but just knows a lot about cell phone plans, can be easy and ready to go. So if you want to think about that design problem, that's another one. I think we're pretty much out of time. Again, my email address is mark@votermedia.org, and on this website we have a contact page. So if you've got questions later, or you want to join this project a bit, we'll be on GitHub pretty soon.